Hi, we're back with another case study. On this one we have a 2006 Infiniti G35. Got the scan tool, show you kind of right there. Hopefully that's showing up. Complaint is it's idling a bit rough. Came in a few days ago. We changed the spark plugs. You know, it's at 200,000 kilometers. They're due. Customer takes it, comes back. It's still a bit rough at idle. So now we're going to look at it. We'll check to see codes, check to see if we got anything. We'll go to our engine, and of course on these older Nissans it takes a little bit for them to read. They generally don't give us very much useful data or codes for finding specific cylinders. If I'm not mistaken, I don't believe there are misfire counters that we can get. So we'll kind of hope that we'll get something useful just as soon as this finishes and actually connects. And yeah, as I suspected, nothing much useful. We got a P0300 multiple cylinder misfire and a fuel level sensor circuit code, which isn't too useful for what we're doing. Again, if we had a dead misfire, then that would be relatively easy. We could go through, we could disable one injector at a time. But when you get kind of a choppy run, it's pretty hard to tell when you disable an injector. Okay, so let's try and get you to see what I see. And I don't suspect we will really find anything too useful. And we'll look through. No, we don't really see anything. Some of these for the air fuel sensors, some of them I kind of prefer the standard fuel trim numbers. It's more what I'm used to. So what I'm actually going to do, I'm going to get out of Nissan mode and just go into generic OBD2 mode. Just about. You can do it. There we go. Okay. So we can fire it up. And since it's not a dead miss, I don't know how well you'll be able to pick that out on camera, but surely you can hear that running a bit rough. So I'm just going to look at our fuel trims. Okay, and right away we do see the bank 2. So if you look total, we're at 25, 30 or so, anywhere from 20 to 30% positive, and bank 1's actually relatively normal. Try to give it a little bit of a raise the RPM a little bit. So we do see that the bank 2 is staying much more lean than bank 1. And typically with something only affecting one bank like that, enough to cause a misfire, and for the numbers not to correct much at a rev. Typically I don't see that with a vacuum leak. Typically a vacuum leak, you can get an intake port that's specific to one cylinder, and it'll more affect one cylinder, one bank than the other, but typically you'll see it kind of on both banks. Whereas right now bank one's looking not bad, and typically when you rev it up and you got a vacuum leak, typically it'll get much better. So I'm kind of leaning away from vacuum leak, but you know what, we just did a tune-up, so you know, who knows, maybe we have a bad coil. Of course the compressor kicks in, but yeah, maybe we have a bad coil. So we'll go out there. I have an inductive wand with the lap scope, and we can see if maybe, right now it's misfiring pretty good, we'll see if maybe it's a secondary, we might be able to catch something on that. So in cars like this, when you can't get misfire counters, it's really easy to just keep chasing things. We always want to try and find our path as quick as possible, with doing as little amount of effort as possible, without removing stuff. So one of the other things too that's nice and quick and easy that we can try, I don't really think this is the issue, but we can see, you know, if there is a mechanical issue, you know, if there's a say a compression issue, then you should hear that while cranking. I don't think there is, but it's easy to rule out if it has clear flood mode. So all we're going to do is we're going to hold the gas pedal down all the way to the floor as much as it can be. Keep in mind, watch out for any mats that might be down there, because we want to be all the way down, and we'll crank it. Now, not all vehicles have clear flood mode, especially some of the newer vehicles. So whenever you do this, you always want to be ready that if this thing starts, take your foot off that pedal as quick as possible. You know, you don't want to throw a rod chasing a misfire, then you definitely will have a misfire. So we're going to hold the foot down, we're going to crank it, and we're just going to listen to it. We're going to listen to the cadence of it. Does it sound even, or does it sound does it sound like there's one that's different? Then we'll know, we'll need to start looking at that. We can follow that up with a relative compression test. But for right now, we're doing quick stuff just to see, do we want to go down that path? So let's give it a listen. And sounded pretty even to me. That's not to say you couldn't still have a mechanical issue, but enough so that I'm going to carry on and see if I can get a decent secondary ignition waveform with my inductive wand, see if I can rule that out. But if we heard something, then we would know, address that right away. So for now, we'll carry on with the secondary. Okay, so we're gonna fire up our picoscope, and we're kind of doing a guided test. So ignition, we are coil unplug, we are a secondary coil unplug probe is what we want. We just want the settings, we don't care about our guide. And there we go. Okay, so this is what a capture will kind of look like. We have a trigger, so what it's going to do is it's going to keep each event there. So I have my wand, I'll show you what that looks like. Let's unplug this so we can go back over to the picoscope. Okay, so this is our pico inductive wand. We're going to place that on top of coils, and it'll produce a pattern that looks similar to that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to place this around there, and I'm going to be watching that. And when it's misfiring, if I see that still have a good signal when it's misfiring, then I can reasonably assume that that cylinder's ignition is working, and I can move on to the next. basically what we're gonna do is if we see a good pattern, then we move on. If we don't see a fantastic pattern, then we keep adjusting this, because we want that to be nice and flat on the coil. Sometimes it's hard to get a good pattern on one of these. It depends on the coil. Some coils are really well insulated and they don't pick up. Others pick up nicely. Some are just so tight that you can get a good footprint on some, but not on others. So you just play with it. And basically, if I can get this on there nice and good, and I'm getting a good pattern, and I'm comfortable that this is reading well, and then I see that flickering as the car is misfiring, then I know I need to address that cylinder. But since we don't have misfire counters, this is what we're going to do, and we'll see if we can see anything. So we'll go get that going. And so right now it's going to look like garbage, but when we're actually firing, since there's a trigger there, it will hold a pattern there. I am screen recording as well, so I will get that up on the video so you guys can see. So, oh yeah, also for our probe, it does come with a ground lead. So what this is for is if for whatever reason the spark jumps out of that coil and into our wand, we want to dump that to ground right away. We don't want that going into our lab scope. So if you have one of these, you always want to have a lead that has a ground clip. So we'll go over to our vehicle. Fire it up. Okay, good. Already we can see and hear that it's not running very well. We got some choppiness there. So we're just gonna hook that just somewhere kind of on there. Let me grab a light. Okay, sorry about shooting you all over the place. Yeah, nothing's ferrous. Okay. So, over there is our monitor. That's going to be hard to see on the camera, but I have a coil right in there. So I'm just going to play around with that. Maybe if I go underneath here, kind of bend that so that's right against there, and we'll see if we can get that to read. So I'm gonna have to play around with the scope a little bit, it would seem. So let me get this set up so that I can get one actually showing, and then we'll continue from there. Well, last time I was doing this, I got it to cooperate really easily. This time it wasn't cooperating. It's funny, I was just about to give up and do something different. As you can see, or hopefully you can see, I'm only partially on there. I'm mostly not even on that coil. But if we come over here, now maybe it's not a great capture, it's maybe not capturing all the detail, but we can see that is very clearly not dropping out. And that's what we wanted to see. I'm sorry I wasn't able to get it to show up better than that or earlier, but this is what we want to see. Now we can see that yes, it's still running pretty crappy, but that cylinder, we do not have to worry about ignition at all. So let's see if I can go to the next one, see if I can get something similar. I am kind of half backwards, upside down on that bolt. So let's see if we can replicate that. I doubt it. I don't know how I just laid that and it just freaking worked just when I was getting frustrated. These things can be a little frustrating. It's definitely not the same as a... Okay, again, that's kind of over the bolt, but it's on there. And if we come back here, this one at least is capturing a better waveform, but we're not seeing it drop out. We're not seeing it, so you can kind of see the firing line, or sorry, you can see the firing line, you can see the spark line, you can see the coil oscillations. You're not seeing this jumping right up against. It's there. That is a firing cylinder. That's all we wanted to see. Last time I did this, it was much quicker than this and much easier, but such is life. That's kind of far away. But let's see. Again, it is capturing. Now keep in mind I'm not on there very well, but hey, it's capturing it. So I will, rather than boring you with the others, because the others are a little harder to get to, I will carry on and I will let you know if I find anything that jumps out. And then as well, just in case it's not showing up on the camera that well, I don't know how well you can make out the choppiness. Go over here. That's not a smooth running engine. Okay, so where are we at? What do we want to do next? I did look at the other cylinders with the wand. I didn't see anything. Didn't see anything that jumped out. So I would have to suspect that I don't think it's a ignition issue. Now the wand isn't making a perfect signal, so you take that with a grain of salt. But I think I'm going to move on from ignition for now. We listened to it crank. I didn't hear anything that raised alarm bells, so I think I'm going to move on from that. We could do a relative compression test, but for the way it's running, I would have thought that I would have heard it. Especially since it does seem like it's a single cylinder. So move on to that. What else does that leave us? It doesn't sound like it's the whole engine, so I don't think things like valve timing or a chain being off, I don't think anything like that would be our issue. It feels like one cylinder. Bank 2, we did notice, is much leaner than bank 1, so maybe it's on bank 2. We could potentially have a vacuum leak, but off camera I did actually smoke test it. Our smoke machine's not really very good, it's pretty cumbersome, so I didn't bother to film that, but yeah, I didn't see any smoke coming out. So what else is easy? We can look at fuel injectors. The injectors themselves on this car are not too easy to get to. I do have a tool that I can pulse them while looking at fuel pressure and do a drop measurement of them. These ones are under the intake manifold as well. The fuel line's not easy to get to. To do that test, you need to hook up a fuel pressure gauge and record the actual drop of each cylinder or each injector as you buzz them. But what if one electrically has a problem? You'd think you should have a code. We don't, but these aren't good throwing codes. So that's quick and easy to do. We can find whatever fuse that's on. We can put a fuse buddy in it. So basically, we got a guy like this. We pull out our fuse, and these have a little spot where you can put the fuse in there. Then you plug this where the fuse used to be. Now you got a loop of wire. You can put your amp clamp around there, hook up the lab scope, and see the current ramps of each of the injectors. Maybe one electrically has a problem. At least then we would know. Honestly, I'm thinking about that's the easiest next step. Okay, so we got our wiring diagram hooked up. Hopefully the glare is not too bad, but we can see right away on our first page, we can see the fuel injectors. So the fuel injectors will have individual wires that are your control. They'll be ground side controlled. So what you'll see is almost always you'll see the power side will be the same color. In this case, that's the case. So we have red, 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 red. Now, not everybody does this, but more often than not, this is what you see for regular port fuel injections, that your power side feed will be the same color and the ground side will be the individual colors. So we're just going to follow this red back. Now if we're lucky, there won't really be anything else on the circuit. So we're number one of the next page. We'll scroll down to the next page. So we follow that over. And that goes to 2 of the next page again. Hopefully you can see that. 2 carries on, comes down, goes back over to 24, the next page. Okay, 24, we're over here. Okay, we got a splice. This comes over to the engine computer. That'll just be an ignition switch input. And then if we follow up, perfect. So, hot and on or start. This is our left kick panel, fuse blocks inside the car. So fuse 1, 10 amp. Let's dig that out. Let's put our amp clamp around there, hook up our scope, run it, and hope that we have an injector problem, because that'd be easy to find, at least on the scope. Not as easy to change, but we would like to find an answer. Okay, so we're in the car. We can see we have to pull this little cover off that lives in there. There's the fuse box. Now let's see what we have on there. Where are we? Oh, we're upside down. Right? Even says up. We don't want to be down on the upside. No. Engine cont injector. Can you see that? Yeah, hopefully. So that'll sit like that. So we're our top inside 10 amp fuse. And I thought ahead and I grabbed my pliers. It's probably getting dark. So, oh, moved you fast. Let's see if I can get you to. Okay, the top inside one of that. I'm gonna yank it out and put my loop in there. It'll be loopy. Yeah. It's a Monday. Oh, I love crawling around under dashes. I can't even see anything. I doubt you can see anything. What's that? Well, anything? No. There we go, now I can see. Okay. Alright, so can you see that? These are those goofy micro fuses. These don't work in the fuse buddies that I have, but they are the same profile as the mini fuses. Let me get you set up. So here's what we got. On the left is the micro fuse. On the right's the mini fuse that we're used to. And they do fit the same profile. You can put a regular mini in a micro spot. So that means I can use my fuse buddy because I don't have one of those in these goofy micros. Actually, as a matter of fact, I think, I don't know if I can get you in there again, but I think there already is a, yeah, in there, yeah, that light blue one, there already is a mini in there, so they do fit. So let's get set up and I'll show you a shot of that. Okay, so it kind of looks like that. Now I got my amp clamp propped up there. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll use a zip tie and I'll tie the amp clamp up so it's not pulling down on our fuse loop, because we don't want to pull that out. But for right now it seems like it'll stay on there. So we'll fire up the scope, we'll fire up the vehicle and see what we see. Okay, so we're firing up the scope. We're using Pico 7. I'm more familiar with Pico 6, but I figured it's about time to get used to 7. I guess they're probably going to phase out 6. They're already starting to do it with the waveform library, so let's try and get used to it. We can turn channel B off. No trigger, time base. Let's go with 5 seconds. There we go. Get rid of that. Yeah, 5 seconds. Our channel A. So our scope that we, our amp clamp that we have, it's set to 100 millivolts equals 1 amp. A fuel injector is not as much as a coil. You know, a fuel injector might use an amp or 2 or so of current. So 100 millivolts is 1 amp. So 1 volt would be 10 amps, and that's going to be a lot more than a fuel injector is going to use. So let's just set our scaling to 1 volt. The rest of that can stay. There we are. Okay, I think we should be good to run it. Okay, our pattern's like, are we, okay, we'll stop, we'll look there, zoom in a little bit, zoom in a little bit more. Oh, we got ourselves some noise, and of course we're upside down. Okay, so we'll go back to running full. Oh, why are you doing that? No, not full. Oh my god. Escape. X. Oh, F11. I didn't mean to do that. Like I said, I'm still getting used to this program. Okay, so if we'll go back there, let's set invert on. We can see that we are well within that range, so let's type. Well, you know what, this picoscope, we don't need to change that. We can always zoom afterwards. We will go with some display, no scale, filter active. Well, we can play with that afterwards. Okay, but we got enough of a capture. Let's go to our, come on, oh you piece of 1:1. Okay, so there we go, that's what we want. Hey. Let me go shut off that car. Okay, so we're back. Our vehicle is shut off. And what do we see? We see actually a lot of ugliness. A lot. So I don't have a trace, or I don't have a sync trace on here, so I don't know who's who. But I don't need to know who's who right now. I'm just looking for direction. These should all be relatively the same. At least it shouldn't have that much of a difference. We know this is a bad injector. Sometimes, you know, if you have a complete set of injectors, say you get a whole set of factory injectors, they should all draw roughly around the same current. If you have one bad, you know, say you got 5 factory injectors in there, then you throw an aftermarket one in there, yeah, expect to see the aftermarket one look a little different. Maybe it'll draw a little less or a little more current. Not the end of the world, but we should never have this amount. Let's zoom in on that if we can. Okay, and we can see that is, I'm gonna say that at least in the start, that's looking pretty shorted for the first little bit. If we go back out there, we see that ramp there, that kind of angle, that's what it should look like. That's a good one. And you can see the pintle hump. So that's the moment where the pintle is actually coming off of its seat. That little physical movement does affect the magnetic field, so you can see it in the current. Whereas, let's see if I can I do this? Yeah, now how do I go down? I don't know. Can I move this? No. Uh-oh. What did I do? What did I do? I don't know what I did. Yeah. I don't know. I'm still... Can I go this way? How do I get out of here? Okay, let's go back to our... I don't know. Maybe I'll get used to this one year, but still not my cup of tea. Alright, so I don't know if we can do that. Maybe that will show. Okay, there we go. So we can see right here, we can see a pintle hump. We don't see any pintle hump on this one. As well, this is a good amount of current. We can see over here, we do see a pintle hump. So we suspected these two are good. This one for sure is bad. Can I... Will this let me scroll? No. Oh, guess so. Maybe it's just got a lag. This one here is lower by a fair amount. Let's see if we can zoom that, zoom that, zoom. Get that. Let's get these, a few more of these in here. Yeah. So on this one, yeah, you can kind of see, if we were probably to zoom in a little more on that, yeah, you can see the pintle hump. It's not as pronounced as some of the others. We definitely have some bad injectors. There's no question about that. Okay, we're back and we got the intake off. Just to give you guys a heads up, if you are doing this job, the intake manifold is a two-parter. The top here does look like maybe you could take the whole thing off as one piece. No, in fact, you have to actually take all the nuts and bolts around here to take this top piece off first, and then you can get these 6 bolts that bolt the whole thing down to this piece. You won't be able to get to those bolts without taking that top piece off. It almost feels like you should be able to, but it is a two-parter. So we'll go through And fuel injectors typically use an amp of current, so we expect anywhere from 10 to 15 ohms of resistance. So our customer, because of kind of what they're willing to do, they just got 3 injectors and changing the 3 worst ones. So we'll go through one at a time, see if we can't shove that in there. Come on. It's a little hard to do one-handed. There we go. Hopefully you guys still are pictured on that. So we got 17.4. Kind of almost suspect that might be a little bit high. And this guy here, 12.8. Yeah, that's more appropriate. Now, of course, the car is cold. Usually if you get resistance specs, you'll get them for when they're cold. 12.8, so that one seems okay. Oh, you're probably not going to see much for this guy. I can't really see much. Maybe I can get lucky though. 12.7, that also seems good. Ah, what do we got there? 200 ohms. That's a bad one. And that's 2,000 ohms. That's the really bad one. Okay, so it's a good thing they got 3 injectors. Obviously it's preferred to do all 6, but you know, at the end of the day, the customer's paying the bills, they make the decisions. So conveniently, yeah, we got 2 for sure that are bad, and this one is 5 ohms higher than those, so we'll change this one as well. So we'll change this one, this one, and this one, and the vehicle will run a lot better. Yeah, there's always potential that those could go down the way, but you know what, you can't exactly just go through and rebuild everything. So we'll go ahead and swap those out, and thanks for watching.